Broncos country, I am so happy to be back talking Broncos training camp. It's been a wild last couple of days, all good stuff, but it's been really, really busy and finally getting caught up on all the latest news and notes from Broncos country. Shout out to all the guys in the David Talks Broncos Discord channel, man. David himself, Kodiak, Andy, Zach Seegers, just to name a few, Cam Parker. They've all been great, man, putting their opinions and putting out great content out there. So make sure you check out those channels as well while you're at it. But we are going to get in and recap the first 2 official days of training camp. This is when things have started to get going. The Broncos have a day off tomorrow before the pads start on Monday, which you always love as a fan because you know that you can evaluate so many more things once the pads come on. So super excited about that. Let's get into the unfortunate news of the day for one of the players that could least afford to undergo an injury, and that is Drew Sanders, who today was carted off to the locker room in the middle of practice. Very unfortunate for somebody like him, man. He finally had a healthy offseason. You were really hoping that he can keep the injury stuff behind him and start to hit his potential that we've seen flashes of throughout his career. And unfortunately, it hits him. Now, positive news, a couple positive things that go into this. First of all, the early indicators and the early reports show that it's not anything to do with his Achilles. It was a lower leg injury. Now they've determined that it's an ankle injury, but it is not his Achilles, which is good because obviously he tore that last year. And he's getting an MRI. And another positive news is that it happened early in camp. If you never want to see injuries, but they're almost inevitable. And if you do, you prefer them to be early on because it gives the player some time to heal up and get back. But this is massive, massive news for Drew Sanders himself, because he had what might be the best opportunity in his entire career to become a starter and to really hit that potential. And so hopefully this injury does not keep him out very long because he really can ill afford to miss a lot of times. And, what that does is it changes a lot for this Broncos team, for the Broncos roster. Right now, somebody like Alex Singleton, who I was saying had a better chance of not making this team versus making it, now the door is wide open for somebody like him. And I'm kind of at the point where I feel like he needs to make this team because, Drew Sanders is not going to – you can't trust that his health is going – his body's going to respond to the grind of the NFL up to this point. So, unfortunate news there. We'll keep you guys posted with any additional information that we have. Like I said, MRI, usually those MRI results will come out tomorrow. We probably won't hear anything until Monday before practice and all that kind of stuff with Drew Sanders. But, man, there is so much optimism and so many positive things to talk about when you're looking at this camp. First of all, it just feels like the Broncos are back in every way of the word. And in the reports that you're seeing and what all the local media is talking about and the energy of the players and the coaches, these are the Broncos of the Peyton Manning era and prior, right? Just having the pride, understanding what the standard is going to be in terms of setting it really high and going out there and having really big aspirations. And that starts with the quarterback, the man himself, Bo Nix, who has looked phenomenal so far in camp. Obviously, he spent about a week out in San Diego with Drew Brees. I thought it was awesome. There's obviously so much that you can gain from him, but just him being so much more comfortable. He did talk to the media today, and he talked about just how he's really not thinking so much now. And he's out there playing. He's out there balling. The play calls are coming out. He's understanding defenses more. And he can just really, really focus now on honing in on his craft and, paying attention to the small details, where obviously as a rookie and as you're trying to grow throughout the season, like you saw him do, it was like you're constantly trying to improve so much. Well, now he's got a very finite amount of things that he needs to focus on. And it makes it a lot easier for him to be doing that. So I love that. He's obviously, I'm just so excited to see, I almost called him Drew Brees, Bo Nix in this offense in 2025. But a couple of other winners, man, and there is a lot. And the reason I mentioned Bo Nix as the first winner is because the guys that he's throwing the ball to are the other winners so far in camp from everything that you've heard, man. Troy Franklin is having himself a really good camp by multiple reports. When I look at what people are saying on Twitter, I like to look for trends because trends are things that you can't really ignore. When it's like one-offs here and there, it's whatever. I kind of ignore it. But when you start to see trends among the media and the fans that are there, it's real. Troy Franklin looks great. Sean Payton talked about how good he looks. He's comfortable. He's getting in, he's really kind of feeding off of that momentum that he finished last year with in that playoff game against Buffalo with the long touchdown. He looks like he's got a much more expansive route tree. He's more polished with his route running from what I'm hearing. And you love it. You love it. He put a lot of work in this offseason, man. You see him on his social media channels. So it's so good to see that. And I'm rooting heavy for somebody like Troy Franklin, because the more the merrier, man. And he's got crazy, crazy, crazy talent. Had a huge long ball yesterday from Jarrett Stidham. Made a couple more plays today where he burned Jaquan McMillan deep. So you got to love all that. So shout out to Troy Franklin. And then the other guy is Marvin Mims, my guy, my dude, Marvin Mims, who I've always loved. I've always just felt like, man, we need to be using this kid more. And the big thing that you've been hearing is he's expanding his route tree. He's doing more wide receiver stuff, and you know that he's got the talent to do so. And so you love that. Something that I'm extremely excited to see. And I'm at the point where I think I might say, man, Marvin Mims might be the best receiver that we have on this team. He might be the guy that finishes with the most amount of catches, the most yards, because he's got that kind of talent. And I think Sean Payton is really figuring out ways to be able to utilize him to his strengths. And he's only adding to his strengths by being a more traditional wide receiver. So I love that. Shout out to Marvin Mims. And then the other receiver, man, Pat Bryant. People are talking glowingly about Pat Bryant. What a lot of the local guys that were there were saying was it just seemed like every single pass that was being thrown was going to Pat Bryant, regardless of who the quarterback was, regardless of the situation, the down and distance. He's somebody that they're looking for. Bo Nix is very involved with him. He's asking questions like, which shoulder do you want the ball on? Right? That's big time. I knew when we drafted Pat Bryant, I knew that he was going to be somebody that can contribute early, because you knew he was a much more polished prospect. The reason that he was a third rounder, some people said he was supposed to be a little later, is because his ceiling might be a little bit limited. But this is not your typical rookie that's going to come in and kind of seem like he's out of place and he's trying to figure things out, kind of like what you saw with Troy Franklin last year. Pat Bryant's going to be a problem specifically on third downs and in the red zone. And that's what you love to see. Couple him up with Evan Ingram, which we'll get to, and what you've seen from him. Man, Bo Nix is going to be so grateful to have more guys that he can rely upon outside of Cortland Sutton, especially on those critical situations in the third down and in the red zone. So, big time shout out to him. And then other receivers, Kyrese Rowan, Joaquin Davis, Courtney Jackson, these undrafted guys. You keep hearing their names pop up. Cecil and Mace keep talking about Joaquin Davis, and they keep saying this dude has just ridiculous athleticism, right? And that's obviously not all it takes to be a really good receiver, but he keeps on popping. And you love to see guys that have a lot of athletic potential, because you can develop those once you get your hands on it. So I love it. I'm a big fan of it. And I think Troy Rank had a really great piece yesterday talking about Johnny Morton and how he felt like they were hindering the development of a lot of these young guys last year because of how he's just yelling and kind of berating them. So, we can get into that on a separate video. I don't want to make this one too long, but there is a lot I want to talk about. But it's just nice. It's nice to see these guys coming into their own, having a good time. And I love the competition at wide receiver. And it's going to be interesting, man. There could be 6. There might be 7 receivers that we end up keeping on this roster. So keep an eye out on that. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun to watch the rest of these guys kind of come into their own, no doubt about it. Another big-time winner we talked about, we mentioned him a little bit, was Evan Ingram. Everybody's consistently saying how good he's looking. He had a really impressive presser yesterday that I loved. Just an unbelievable worker, really good dude. And I don't know if y'all noticed this, man, but he really put some weight on compared to like when he signed, when you saw the video and he had initial interview. Obviously, I knew he was coming off of an injury, but he really looked like he's filled out. He's back to his normal playing size, which I was worried about because there was a lot of reports about him just looking really small. And we've always known he's not a big, he's a big receiver, but he's a small tight end. But he's really out there, looking good, looking explosive, getting open in the short to intermediate routes like he normally does. And his work ethic is palpable, man. It's awesome. It's good to see a leader like him on the team. And I can't wait to see what he can do, not just with the pads on and into the preseason, but into the regular season for Bo Nix, because Lord knows we need it at the tight end position. We haven't had somebody like him in a long time. So shout out to him. And then on the defensive side of the ball, man, 2 days in a row, right? You want to see guys stack days. You want to see guys stay healthy. So 2 days in a row so far, Lavelle Bailey has popped. And now with this Drew Sanders injury, he's going to have even more opportunities. But you love to see it. I always said, I've been saying it for the last couple of weeks. I think Lavelle Bailey is going to be somebody that is a dark horse to be the starting linebacker next to Greenlaw. But for me, it was more just like a feeling. And obviously, we saw a little bit of some good stuff in preseason last year, but it's not like it was enough to claim he was going to make the jump, right? He's still an undersized guy. He's still undrafted. He still had Singleton and Sanders at minimum in front of him, plus probably Sternad. He's looked great. 2 days in a row with pass breakups. He absolutely humiliated Lucas Kroll yesterday, who we'll also get to in coverage. And he did the same today, man. He's looked good. He's looked fast, great in coverage. It's going to be very, very important for him to see how he looks in pads, right? What is he going to look like against the run? What's he going to look like when he's moving with the extra weight, when he has to be a little bit more physical? Obviously, that goes for all linebackers. But Lavelle Bailey's got a very, very special opportunity, man, right now to really, earn not just a roster spot on this team, because I think he's making this team, but maybe a starting job. So keep an eye out on Lavelle Bailey. He's somebody that I'm super high on. Chris Abrams-Drain is out there making plays, man. Riley Moss, people were talking about today. He looked super good out there competing. Sean Payton talked about him. I love it when guys that have really good seasons after their first year of starting, like Riley Moss did, they drafted a corner in the first round. And all he does is continue to be motivated. He's out there. He's sticky. He's making plays. I love him. I think Riley Moss is going to be in line for a really big season, and hopefully he can continue to stay healthy and do his thing. Yesterday, man, people were raving about a punter, Jeremy Crawshaw. You're talking all-pro potential. When Andrew Mason talks about a punter, you listen, because he's the only one that really talks about punters. He has a big affinity for him, man. He's always giving up punter updates. Jeremy Crawshaw is going to be a special punter. Now, as a fan, I never root for our teams to punt, but we know that it's inevitable. And when you've got a really good defense, right, and you've still got a lot of young guys on offense, a big advantage that you can give your team is field position. And that's where the punter comes in. So shout out to Jeremy Crawshaw, man. Everyone's saying he's got a crazy amount of talent. I think he's got all pro potential. You love to see it. And then an honorable mention for me is Ioma Uwazurike. Anytime you have Sean Payton go out of his way to talk about you and you're in that position, man, he's going to be in a battle for that 51st, 52nd, 53rd roster spot, right? With some of the other defensive tackles, the D-line guys like the Jordan Jacksons of the world. And I wouldn't say Savion Jones, but, there's a couple, maybe like Matt Henningsen, but there's other back end of the roster guys. I always felt like Ioma Uwazurike was somebody this coaching staff liked. I love his athleticism, his build, his versatility. So really good to see him putting some plays together. And he's been able to have a nice full off season now too, right? Without any kind of distractions and any of that. So shout out to him. Now we got a couple losers. We got to talk about so far. Now, obviously it's very early, but these guys, man, time's a ticking for you. The first one we talked about already is Drew Sanders. When you get injured and you've had a career filled with injuries, and the only big question mark that you had coming into this offseason and into the season in general is your health. You get injured on the second day of camp, it's obviously very concerning. Now, I'm hoping it's not that serious. I don't worry about like he was carted off. The cart is a very common thing now in the NFL, just to kind of get things going and not make guys walk around on their injuries. But he was seen afterwards in a walking boot going to get an MRI. Again, walking boots are very precautionary. If I had to make a guess, and it's obviously just speculating, I think it's some sort of an ankle sprain. Hoping it's a lower ankle sprain, like a more traditional one, even level 1 or level 2. Grade 3, you have a problem. High ankle sprains can be really, really ugly and very tricky. So hopefully it's not that. But I'm hoping it's the ankle, if anything, and nothing to do with the calf. Because coming off of an Achilles injury, the calf makes you very susceptible. Anyways, so he's one. Number 2, man, is going to be Audric Estime, unfortunately. Now, I will say this. Audric is going to have to shine when the pads come on. He's not a running back that's going to look really special or, make a lot of plays when there's no pads on. He needs to have the pads. He is 4th in the rotation right now, sometimes 5th. He's kind of buried down on the lower part of the roster behind, obviously, JK, RJ, Jaleel, and Bidet. But if the Pats come on and he can ball out and he can really show the physicality and show the unique skill set that he can bring, it's going to be huge for him. But so far, nothing positive, right? You always want to hear some positive news. Like, you heard about RJ and how quick he looks and how big he looks in the drills. Obviously, JK and his blocking ability, you see. They, even talked about like Jaleel McLaughlin and his ability to just, get the corner and find the pylon, which we know he can do. And then Bidet with his contributions as a kick return man right now so far. And that's going to be a very big key as well. Audrick's going to need to make plays. And time's ticking for him. When the Pats come on, we'll really be able to see. But it's going to be tough. And then Lucas Kroll, man, he had a bad day yesterday. Terrible day. Unfortunate for him because it's not like we have a very deep tight end room. We have a lot of talent. But he was struggling. I didn't really hear too much about him today. But not hearing much about him today is not a good thing for somebody like Lucas Kroll, who had a really bad day yesterday. So those are some very, very early. I know it's only day 2 of camp. But interesting stuff, man. I'm excited. I want to know what's really popped so far to you guys in camp. But what I love about this team is you really see the depth that the team has. I do have concerns about like the upper echelon talent, right? Like we don't have a lot of superstars compared to like other very good rosters, but we have a bunch of very, very, very solid players. Like you look at, Bo Nix's receivers, right? Cortland Sutton, very solid, not a superstar, but very, very good. Evan Ingram, not a superstar tight end, but very solid. Our O-line is very good across the board. We don't have that superstar running back, but we've got so many guys that are good enough. Wide receiver 2 gets injured, you're not really dropping off when you go to the other guys that are on the roster. Running back 1 gets injured, you're not really dropping off too much with the guys below them on the roster. And that kind of goes, throughout the tackle position everywhere. So you love that. But yeah, do we have superstars across the board? I mean, I would say we have a superstar, obviously, in Patrick Surtain. I would say we have a superstar in Quinn Miners so far. We know what Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga can do, but given their injury histories, there's still question marks there. So an incredible amount of depth and an incredible amount of potential, which you love to see. Overall, man, I'm feeling phenomenal in terms of where we are as a football team. And I can't wait to see what Bo Nix and this offense can do going into the 2025 season, man. A lot more content to come, guys. Thank you all for riding with me, man. I'm excited. We're going to talk about a lot of things, right? A lot of things as training camp approaches. Obviously, we'll have the daily videos breaking down that day of camp. But getting into like who should play the most in the preseason. The games are going to be huge for a lot of these guys. So we'll have some videos breaking that down too. Let me know what you guys think below, man. What's popping off about you about your thoughts on camp so far. I want to know what you're most excited about. And if there's anybody I didn't mention, hit me up in the comments. Let me know below. Until the next one, man. Y'all take it easy, bro. Peace.